When it comes to creating a form and then filling it out electronically, as you see here, I've got a form that's based upon a table, so it's easy to see where to put the title, their first name, last name, other information including their software interest, or the software that they would like us to create the training video on, then the media type that they want that training video available on or in, like a DVD or as a download, the estimated time it will take to complete the training video, and whether the software that they want us to create the training video on is a commonly known software, or if it's not, then we'll have to charge them more because then we can't really repackage and resell the training video to other potential clients. And then any comments, and then any action taken after we get the new client's information, like did we follow up with a phone call, an email, or a postcard, or all three. In any case, go ahead and set up your form, and you can do it any way you want. You don't have to do it in a table format that you see here. In fact, if you feel better, let me go ahead and select the table and convert it to text. In other words, just pull out the text and get rid of the table. As you recall in an earlier training video on tables, after you select the table, come up here, click on the Layout tab, go to the Data Group, and convert it to text. Click on it, and then how do you want to separate the text? With tabs, click OK. The table's gone, the text is there. You can't see the text because the text was in white. Now the white text against a white background, of course you can't see it. So come up here, and we'll click on the font color drop down arrow and select automatic, and then you can see the text. So the table's gone. You can go ahead and just type it in this way. Just say, okay, I'm going to type here title and then type there first, or just hit enter a couple of times. This will be my last. And then when you click next to it, go ahead and type in the last name, or click underneath it and then tab over and type in the first name. The problem that you run into by doing it this way without using the form fields feature, where you can actually add fields that people can tab right to and be able to type in the text there, is that when you're tabbing around here, pushes the text over. It doesn't take you right to that field, does it? It does when you're using a table format. It'll take you from cell to cell to cell, but the other benefits that you don't get from using form fields, besides, tabbing from one field to the next, is that you don't get to control the type of information that somebody's going to be inputting into the form. In other words, there are three types of form fields that I want to show you. One is the text form field. So you add a form field here where people can type in their text or their first name, a text field. The second field is a drop-down field, like let's say for the title. I don't want Dr. or something else like Winston III. I just want a Mr., Mrs., or Ms. So I can create a drop-down form field there with those three choices. They don't have any other choice. So I can control what's put into that field. The third field are checkboxes. Like I could put three checkboxes down here for action taken. Did they follow up with a phone call, a postcard, or an email, or all three? So they can check all three, or just check one, or just check two. It's multiple choice, or as many choices as they would like. But it's still limited to my choices of what I put down in there, but opened up that they can choose one or many. Where with the drop-down field, they can only choose one. So I can control the information that comes into the form that we accept. Not completely, because if it's a text box, whatever text they type, well, that's what I get, right? Pretty much. Let me go ahead and show you by hitting the undo button several times, because I like my table format here. It's pretty cool. It's pretty easy to see what field I'm in here, or what cell. We haven't added the fields yet. Now the first field that I'm going to add, as I mentioned, is a drop-down form field. In other words, for their title. They can go ahead and select either Mr., Mrs., or Ms. Now, if this wasn't in table format, then I can put my, cursor to the right, wherever I want to add this form field to, this drop-down form field. I'm going to add it in this cell. So to add it, just come up here and click on the Developer tab. If you don't see the Developer tab, by default it's not available, then you want to go ahead and right-click anywhere on the ribbon and customize the ribbon. Then come down here and check Developer, and then click OK, and then you'll see it. Then come up here and click on the Developer tab, go to the Controls group, and then click on, or hover over so you can see it, the Legacy Tools, click on the drop-down arrow, and it's these three fields here that we're going to be adding to our form, or the ones that we'll be covering. The first one is the text form field. It's all about text. Whatever text that you want to type in. Well, you have some control over it, and I'll show you in just a second. Next is the checkbox form field, where they can go ahead and check as many boxes as you want available there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this one here is the drop-down form field, which is what we're going to be adding right now by clicking on it to the title cell, or just below the title label there. So it adds a gray rectangle. Now to customize this field, to be able to control what data people can select from the drop-down list, you can either double-click on it and then add your drop-down item one by one. brings up that window. You can close out, or you can right click on it, go to Properties, brings up the same window, close out, or with the cursor flashing in the gray field, come up here on the Developer tab to the Controls group, click on Properties, brings up the same window, okay? It's just easier for me to double click on that to be able to customize that gray form field. More specifically, it's a drop-down form field. So let's go ahead and start adding our items here. The first one being Mr. And then you see the button here, Add. You can either click on it, or because it's highlighted in blue, you can hit the Enter key and it's like clicking on it. It adds it over here as one of the items to choose from. The cursor's flashing over here. Let's go ahead and add Mrs. Hit Enter, and then add Ms. Hit Enter. And then I could just simply click OK, and by default, Mr. will be available because that's up at the top. I mean, if that's the common client, so Mr., then that's fine, I suppose. Or, better yet, how about if we go ahead and type in, so we can have that as the default choice. So we can go ahead and select it, move that to the top. So when we're done and we click OK, it'll say select one and not Mr., Mrs., or any of the others as the default here. And it's a good idea to have this select one, because then that way, when somebody saves the form, if you still see this, it means, hey, they didn't get it. Instead of having the default as Mr. and then have some lady's name there and go, did you really double check this? So there you go. Now I could go ahead and click OK, and that's pretty much it. Or, better yet, in a later training video, I'm going to show you an advanced feature that ties to the bookmark. Now every time you create a form field, or excuse me, add a form field to your form, it has a generic bookmark name. I'm going to go ahead and delete that and give it the name that makes sense to me. Like this is the title. Let's call this bookmark the title, okay? And click OK. Couple of things. When you click OK, the default select one, because remember, when you double click on it, that's the first item in the list, okay? Now notice that when I click on it, it doesn't give me the choices. And the reason why it doesn't is because I haven't protected the form yet. In other words, it still thinks that it's in edit mode, and it is. In other words, I can still make changes to it by double clicking, selecting one of these, removing them, or adding more, or changing the bookmark, whatever changes I need to make here. That's the first thing. The second thing, let me go ahead and click cancel, was the bookmark title. Do you remember the cross-reference training video where you can actually cross-reference to bookmarks? Well, let me take it down to page 2. You've got a letter here that after we fill out the form for a new client, you can actually cross-reference to that field, the title, where it says Dear, insert the cross-reference, and if it's a Mr., it pulls in Mr. Pretty cool, huh? So I don't have to come down here and retype it. I can go ahead and pull in those fields and have it automatically populate here. And we'll go over this a little bit more in detail here, but to keep it simple, let's scroll back up to the top here and just continue and add more form fields here. So that one's the drop-down field. Let's go ahead and add some basic text fields where they can just go ahead and type in some text, their first name, last name. Going to go ahead and click under the first label here, and then come back up here, click on the Legacy Tools, and then select Text Box for a text field where people can type in text. Select it, adds the gray box. You can go ahead and leave it as is and just accept the defaults, or find out what the defaults are by double clicking on it. The defaults are is that you can type until the cows come home because the length is unlimited, or you can click on the up arrow and say they can only type in 1 character, 2 characters, 3 characters, or go back down the other way to unlimited. You can have the type for this field as regular text, or you can have it a number field, like for a zip code, where they can type in numbers only, no text. Date, current time, calculation. Let's go ahead and leave it as regular text. And then you can actually have a prompt, or the default text. You can say this is the first name field. So when they get to that field and they start typing, it'll actually overwrite the default text, okay? And then what kind of text format do you want? You can have all uppercase, lowercase, or the first word capitalized here. We'll go ahead and do that. And then down below in the bookmark, again, for a more advanced feature that I want to show you, let's go ahead and rename this bookmark, because when I'm inserting a cross-reference, do you know what field this is tied to? Text 1? I mean, is that the first name, last name? I don't know. But I do know if I go ahead and delete that and say this is the first name. Now, as you recall in the bookmark training video, bookmarks do not like spaces. They won't work with the space, so you have to get rid of the space. You can either collapse it together so there's no gap or space between first and name, or you can go ahead and hit the underscore so you can still separate it visibly here pretty much by seeing somewhat of a space. You still have the underline there, but that way there's no space and the bookmark doesn't have a fit. Click OK. And then last, let's go ahead and click. Add text field, let's double click, because you know how to do it. Let's go through this really fast. This is last. Text format, click on the drop down arrow, first capital. Let's do last name. Click OK. Well, you get the idea. How about if I go ahead and fill in the rest of these fields here? They're going to be the same text fields, for street, city, state. I'm not going to do anything special. Unless, of course, I want to create a drop-down field for state and then add all the states in the US here and type them one at a time, which I don't want to. I'll just have them type it in as text, but hey, it's your choice. It's your form. Okay, I just added 3 more text form fields for the street address, city, and state. Let's add another one for the zip code by coming up here, clicking on the drop down, adding the text form field. I know it's a number field, but you have to go this route. First, add the text form field, then you can double click on it to bring up its properties to change it from regular text to a number field, okay? You can type in a default number, but for the zip code, does that make sense? I mean, what am I going to type in? 11111? We'll leave that alone. The maximum length of the zip code, let's say, is 5 digits. Go ahead and click on the up arrow till I can get to number 5. Then come over here for the number format, click on the drop down arrow. Do you want decimal places? Is it going to be a large number, so you're going to have it in the thousands and you want a comma? Is it going to be a large number with decimal places? Are you going to have negative numbers, so you have parentheses there? In any case, I'm going to go ahead and type in my own number format, pound, 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 1 for each digit. In the zip code, a total of 5, and then down below for the bookmark, of course, it's the zip code field here, so I'll type in zip, and then for a space, use underscore, then code. And then what you can do in addition to all this is you can add help text. In other words, I don't have anything up here that I could put in for the default number to tell them it's just 5 digits only. I mean, it won't allow them to type in more than 5 digits, but if they keep typing it in, it's just like, wait a second, I want 4 more digits and a dash. Let's go ahead and add some help text. Click on it, and down in the status bar, it'll actually display whatever help text we type in here. Change it from none to either auto text entry and find whatever auto text you have available, which we'll cover in a later training video, the auto text, or you can type your own, and then just come down here and type whatever you want to type. Click okie dokie, and then click OK. And then I'll show you, let me click off, that when we go ahead and we convert these fields from edit mode into actual data entry mode, you'll see it that when they click inside this field, down below in the status bar, it'll have all the text that I just typed. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap this up because now you know how to insert a drop-down field, text fields. How about the checkbox fields, where they can go ahead and check, well, 1 or as many boxes as we'd like them to check. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of these fields with either a text box or a drop-down form field, and then when we get down to action taken, I'll bring you back in because that's where I want to put my check boxes in, okay? You don't want to rush me. Give me a second. I'm an artiste. I must take my time. Okay, now's a good time to bring you back into the video here. I've added some extra text form fields, and they're easy to spot. Well, separate from the form drop-down fields, like where it says select one, select one, select one. And these are text fields here. Phone, software interest, email. Let's go ahead and scroll down and add the third and final form field that I want to show you. The first 2 we got, text form fields and drop-down fields. Now it's the checkbox form fields. So to add one, well, again, come back up here, click on the drop-down arrow, and click on checkbox. Hit the space bar because I like a little bit of space between the checkbox and my text. And then type in next to it the name of the checkbox. Hit enter, and you can either go ahead and insert this again, or you can go ahead and select it, Control-C to copy it, and then Control-V as in Victor to paste it. I mean, you can do that as well. This one will be for email, and then come over here, and because it's within the cell, I'd like, some spacing between, well, right here and the next checkbox over. If I hit the Tab key, it's going to go outside the cell and add another cell down below. So as you recall in my table training video, if you want to tab within a cell that's, well, within the table there, you have to hold down the Control key and hit the Tab key, and then it will tab. So Control Tab again because I want more space. Then Control V as in Victor to paste it, and this one's going to be... So we followed up either with a postcard, an email, or a phone call. Yeah, let's do call. Okay. Now, after I insert these fields, I can double click on them to bring up the properties. And I can change the checkbox size from automatically being yay big to exactly being 10.9.8. Well, whatever point. You get my point. In any case, the default value could always be checked or not checked. And let's see, this one's the first checkbox, check 1. This is going to be for card. Okay. Click OK. Double click on this one. This one's going to be, well, it's check 1, but we don't want it to have the same bookmark name, so action. And then double click on that one. And of course this one's action. And that's it. We now know how to add 3 different types of form fields: drop-down arrows, regular text form fields, and checkbox fields. You can't use them, or nobody can actually use them, to fill in this form electronically until we actually protect the form. Once we protect the form, which I will show you in the next training video, it'll lock these fields down so nobody can edit them. You know, double click on them to bring up their properties, because when they actually, in this case, click on the box, it'll actually check it or put an X in it. When they click on this drop-down form field, it won't just flash, it'll actually give them a drop-down list of items to choose from. And then when they click in the text box field, they can just go ahead and start typing in their text. So be a good neighbor and watch my next training video. I like you.